repeat together. Om. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, so we're in chapter 10, 18 chapters in the Gita. Have you ever read? No? Okay. So, chapter 10, it's really the second portion of the Gita where the absolute, through Lord Krishna, but the absolute, the highest, describes its nature and describes the nature of the universe and the relationship between the two. So this particular chapter is called the Divine Manifestations, Vibhuti Yoga in Sanskrit. And we'll just pick up and read and discuss. So feel free to ask questions. I recognize you're jumping in halfway, but there's always something for everyone here. So, cool. So here's the shloka we were discussing yesterday. We'll just repeat and then pick up on the commentary. We had a good discussion. This is number 10. To the ever steadfast, worshipping me, capital M, not limited, the absolute, with love, I give the Buddhi Yoga by which they come to me. And then here's the discussion of this term Buddhi Yoga, picking up here from Swami Chinmayananda ji. This term Buddhi Yoga, already mentioned earlier, has been described as the right knowledge, and he quotes, the right knowledge gained through meditation upon the infinite nature of the self. Capital S, self. So briefly, the concept, there are apparently two within us. Sometimes it'll seem like a lot more than that. All these arguments inside. And so what we hear is, in some of the traditions of teaching or sharing what's happening inside and in this world, is small as self, which is the ego self, the identity, the idea of who I am, which seems very firm, but incorrect. And then the capital S self, which is that God inside, or the highest self, or the intuitive self. So here, you don't see it since you're not reading the text here, but capital S self referring to God inside, or one's own highest self, or true self. So Buddhi Yoga, already mentioned earlier, has been described as the right knowledge gained through meditation upon the infinite nature of the self. In the context of its use here, we may say that a devotee striving diligently, as explained above, will be blessed with, and he quotes, an intellectual contact with or comprehension of reality. No doubt, and by the way, this comes, so we've been watching this science documentary series based on a beautiful book, which really lays out modern scientific understanding about the nature of the world, space and time, the nature of the universe, the nature of this reality that we're experiencing and sharing, which is obviously not as it appears to be. Yes? Is it obvious? Only through study. Only through working it out, only through reason, only through contemplation, only through meditation. And that's certainly what the scientists are demonstrating, is it? That it's not the way it appears? Yeah? Oh, okay. Last night we watched a segment on quantum physics, quantum behavior, quantum physics. Mind-blowing stuff. Because we think we know, but we don't know. That's our situation. But we think we know so strongly that we're like a full cup, and you try to pour something more in and it just spills out because we think we know so strongly. And so we've been referring the last couple of days to breaking our head open, breaking it so the contents spill out and we have room. So Buddhi Yoga is being described as a blessing and being blessed with an intellectual contact with or comprehension of reality. And we understand the intellect is conscious mind, right? So that's how we work things out. That's the reasoning faculty. Most of our contact with mind is subconscious mind, because mostly, as we're placed in situations, circumstances, it's reactions that are bubbling forth. But here, when we reflect, when we contemplate, when we think, and it also has to do with our notion of reality or life or who we are. It's also in conscious mind. So we have ego, which is an adjunct or aspect of mind, but when you think, when you rationate, you're starting with an assumption on who you are and who they are and what is this. So an intellectual comprehension of means in the conscious mind, when you've come to comprehend or to know that only God is here. Only quanta are here. Only the mystery is here. You think you know something, but you don't. So through the process, what's being shared is that an intellectual understanding will come, or intellectual contact or comprehension of, which means you finally come to know, son of a gun, this is all God. No doubt, we do not mean that the intellect can comprehend the infinite. We see that with science, right? Do you see that?
Yeah, they said it over and over.
They say it over and over again. We don't understand, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right? We don't understand how it got here. We don't understand why it's this way. We don't know what causes this behavior, correct?
Yeah.
But we know this is the behavior and we've proven it. Yes? Yes? Oh, same thing. For the yogi, same thing. Lord, I don't know where you came from. I don't know what your cause was. I don't know how you work. I don't know why you do this. But I know that you are the reality here. And therefore I am you. Because I am real also. But I am not what I take myself to be. I am not this body. I am not these thoughts. I am not these desires running through. I am not this prana. This life force. This life force is universal. It's not me. Only in the highest sense could I say it's mine, but then it would have to be all of it because it's universal. This intelligence is not mine. This mind is not mine. None of this is mine. This is all yours. So from one way of saying I am an aspect of you, just that. I'm not separate from you. So that's Buddhi Yoga. I don't know how you work. I can see some evidence. I know that I can trust. Like this. So he's saying the fruit, as it were, and by the way, the fruit is only through grace, and this is discussed as well. What's our role? We've been talking about it. What's our role?
Gather experience for the whole.
What's our role? He's saying it time after time after time. What's our role?
Preparing for to receive.
What's our role? To the ever steadfast, worshipping me with love, I give the Buddhi Yoga. What's our role?
Oh. Get out of the way, worship.
Come on, guys. Worship. Yes. What's that mean? See me everywhere. Huh? Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to relate to? Who are you going to commiserate with? What was the reading yesterday evening, yesterday afternoon in the puja? Atma is your friend. And therefore be a what to Atma?
A friend?
To the soul.
To the soul.
Be a friend to your soul. Be a friend to the soul. Be a friend to the soul. Who's here? The soul. See the soul. What are you working for? Work for the soul. Oh, like this. That's our role. That's what's being shared here. To the ever steadfast worshipping me with love, I give the Buddhi Yoga by which they come to me. So, no doubt we do not mean that the intellect can comprehend the infinite. We are merely borrowing a familiar phrase from the realm of finite experiences. As long as we have comprehended intellectually, it is not contradicted by any other different comprehension. We are capable of experiencing what we have comprehended beyond all traces of doubt. You come to a place where you know what it is that you're experiencing, or who it is that you're experiencing, where you know what's here, who's here. And it becomes firm. Now that firmness is also grace. As we said, we break our head. We're doing the same thing as the scientists are in yoga. We're dealing with this, trying to understand it, trying to comprehend it. We're doing our best to devote our lives to the precepts. Be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate, bear insult, bear injury. Yes? We're doing our best. We're doing our best. The fact that this comes is grace, and this is being discussed as well. But what is it that comes? Firmness. Is complete understanding there in terms of how are all of these mysteries being performed? No, but it's interesting. We're just about, we'll see the next part of the series today. But I remember this from the scientific exploration. So we hear about there being infinite parallel universes. Who's heard that? Okay. And here's one of the ways that it's described. When we deal with the concept of 10 dimensionality or 11 dimensionality, the same concept is called either 10 dimension reality or 11 dimension reality. I'll share it. We don't necessarily have to watch it together. There's a short, little documentary on YouTube that helps us give a way for this finite mind to process this idea of 11 dimensionality. We know of 4 dimensions. We know of the one dimension being a point. The first 3 dimensions are space, right? The second dimension being a flat expanse. And the third dimension is when we add depth, right? And the fourth dimension is time. So we're always dealing with the 4 dimensions. Because we say, I will meet you here at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So here is described as a 3-dimensional point, and when is the 4th dimension. So we're always dealing in 4 dimensions whenever we're in this plane. And adding these additional dimensions is very interesting, but this is part of the understanding that's coming in physics. Adding these other dimensions is adding possibilities and probabilities in, which we've discovered is the fabric of the cosmos. The fabric of the universe is potentialities and probabilities. That's what the quanta is, and quantum behavior is this. So these waves that are possibility or probability waves, which is exactly what Lord Krishna is talking with us about. I exist as pure potential. So the underlier is pure potential. So in this case, then these other dimensions are, if you play out all of the possible timelines and all of the possible space lines, all of the things that could happen, assume that they do happen, and those are the additional dimensions. And then going back in time, all of the things that could have happened, assume that they did happen. And where did they happen? This is what leads to the conclusion that there are multiple universes, that there are parallel universes. And so here was a concept that I broke my head on several years ago. And that is that we think that there are always choices and only one thing happens. So if I set this, and I'll do my best to set it so that it stands straight up, it won't happen. You see, it just fell. It fell to one side. I was doing my best. But then it seems random. I have to be careful with this, because those are 2 new universes that were just created. So the physicists would say, some would say, what happened actually was both, that it fell to the right and it fell to the left. Our perception is it fell to the right, but it also fell to the left. And that is the beginning of a new universe. Now, break your head on that concept. So what Lord Krishna is sharing is actually not so weird. is not as weird as science is. Because we have free will, and this is what we observe, is that we have free will, although free will is limited. So the scientists are not comprehending, and what we're speaking to is this Buddhi yoga is similar, although they've come to the settled conclusion that this weird behavior is the underlier. They have no doubt about it. And I can't argue with them, and Krishna wouldn't argue with them either. They're not understanding what it's coming from, but they're understanding that it's there or it's here. So that, in a way, you could say is Buddhi yoga. They don't understand it, but they know that it's the underlying reality. What they're observing is the underlying reality. Here, interestingly enough, what Lord Krishna is sharing is a deeper view of it. He's not denying any of the things that, and speaking as the absolute, he's not denying any of the things she, mother, father of all, the causeless cause, the one seed, causal seed, which had no cause. He's not denying any of this, nothing that he's sharing. In fact, we pick up these texts that are thousands of years old, Yoga Vasishta, for example, where this discussion with Lord Rama, who's also an instrument of the Absolute, speaking with sage Vasishta, and having this discussion about what is this world, and sage Vasishta saying, in the infinite universes. Now, this is supposedly knowledge that's 50 years or 60 years old. But still, this concept of Buddhi yoga is coming to a place of firmness where you come to know that the reality is the reality. You don't understand all of the aspects of it, but you know that it's the underlying reality, and you know that it's here everywhere. You know that it's the underlying reality of this and everything that happens here. And you know that you're an aspect of it, or part of it, or all of it. But there's no question any longer that your reality is that reality. And so that's Buddhi yoga. That's what's being described. So what happens to fear? You see, what happens to anxiety?
Gone.
They're gone. And then what about clarity? What about peace? It's here. It's here all the time. I have to do something. I have to cook. What about peace? Right? Okay. So this is the yoga which he's talking about, is coming to the place of firmness where you know. Do you know what's going to happen in the next moment? No. But I know who I'm with. Right? So it's fine. The asteroid hits, okay, no big deal, it's fine. What will I do? I'll do what I'm supposed to do, maybe nothing. Maybe I'll scream. I'll do my part, whatever that is. But will I be freaked out? No. Because I know where I am, I know who I'm with. I'm in the timeless place where there is no space. Isn't that a freaky one? That science, modern science, is beginning to realize that there's no space. It's also an appearance. So, entanglement. Okay. So continuing. No doubt we do not mean that the intellect can comprehend the infinite. We mean we're merely borrowing a phrase. He says, as long as what we have comprehended intellectually is not contradicted by any other different comprehension, so that's a place of firmness, right? Where there's not this inner doubt any longer because the doubt has been resolved. We're capable of experiencing what we have comprehended beyond all traces of doubt. So the perspective changes, the experience changes. Actually, it's the same experience, but the way we experience it. And that's the funny thing about us is we're each experiencing one reality, and between science and religion, there won't be disagreement on that. We're each experiencing one reality, but we each experience it in our own way. Right? So what does that mean? That means we're out of alignment individually with what is the reality here. Which puts us in a mode of constantly seeking alignment, or what we call satisfaction or happiness or harmony. But then we come to that place. Similarly, the power of an intuitive awareness of reality comes only to such seekers in whom the maturity of a steady and continued contemplation upon the self has come about. When, through the above process of bringing the mind to quietude, and that's what happens to the mind, you see that, right? It's not frantic anymore. It's not seeking something any longer. It's not looking for some fulfillment or some high or some experience or something. Right? So the mind is in quietude at that point. You might see someone whose mind is at quietude and think that they're not. I suppose there are times where Swami Shivananda would be quite animated, or any of these masters on the wall. So we're so accustomed to relating, but on the inside, if you look at their inside, you see what you saw with Gandhi when that bullet comes. On his inside was what? Wrong. Oh. Those were the last words when he left the body, when the assassin bullet hit. Ram. Which speaks to the state of mind. So the mind was settled and firm. There's no
oh no.
Yeah, there's no oh no. There's no I'm gonna get you. Ram. So that's what it was like before. So then he describes the process. When through the above process of bringing the mind to quietude, a meditator has succeeded in arresting the mind's agitations, or vikshepa, and has consequently lifted the veiling, or avarana, from his intellect, the dullness, where the intellect is not sharp. That's avarana, the veiling. Vikshepa is the tossing, the monkey mind. Constantly, one thing. Oh my God, so tiring. That's tossing. So those are said to be the malas, or the defects of the mind, the impurities of the mind. The veiling, dullness. And then vikshepa. So a meditator, one who's practicing meditation in every moment, which means seeing the one in the moment, whether it's inside or outside. Relating to the one each moment. This is the meditator. It's not just sitting in silent meditation, right? Serving the one, karma yoga. Devoting to the one, bhakti yoga. Thinking about the one, jnana yoga. Meditating deeply inside on the one, raja yoga. Right? But it's all about the one reality, essential reality, and making that the center of our life. Because we discover it is the center of our life. And so we practice it. Right? And so we practice it. And practice makes perfect. And so through grace, then the understanding is a lived understanding. And action is naturally karma yoga. You don't have to strive for it then. Because you got out of the way. And now you simply act for the benefit of all. right? And devotion is natural. We're always devoted to something. That's the human experience. But instead of being devoted to limited things such as fame or money or power or this person or that person, then the devotion is natural towards that essence which is in all. Right? And love is overarching, expansive, universal. Because that one is everywhere. And what to think about, what to speak about. It's silent, except when the opportunity is there to share the glories and to share the stories. Right? And meditation becomes a natural experience, and it's called, at that point, samadhi. There's your word. Then it's called samadhi. Then it's no longer called concentration or meditation. It's called samadhi because it's unbroken, steady state at that point. That's initially savikalpa, samadhi. And Swamiji says that is the fulfillment of Buddhi Yoga. So that's what comes from it, is the steady state. Oh. The next sutra we'll pick up in the morning, or shloka, is this. Out of mere compassion for them, I, dwelling within their heart, destroy the darkness born of ignorance by the luminous lamp of knowledge. You know, Shakespeare, all of the world is a play, and all of the men and women but players upon it. Players within it. Players upon the stage. We do come to see, invariably, that life is not what we took it to be. Yes? Invariably. And the one taking it to be this or that is the player on the stage. And the one underlying reality is unaffected by the players on the stage. So why do the players ever need to be told or ever need to come to know who they really are? The play could just continue with no voice in the darkness saying, "Wake up, my dear. Wake up, you're not what you take yourself to be. I can show you the way to happiness. Follow me. Pick up your cross and follow me." Why does that voice need to come? Why does the light need to shine into the darkness to help lift us out of our prison cells? Why does it need to come? In order to fulfill itself in some way?
Just compassion.
Just compassion. Just compassion. It doesn't need to come. We don't need to wake up from the perspective of the Absolute. Because the Absolute is undisturbed. So it doesn't have any personal motivation in waking us up, helping us to see our unity with each other and with it. Huh? We can just go on beating ourselves up in the play. We can go on screaming at each other. We can go on yelling at each other ad infinitum. Look at how many creative ways we have to be upset with each other. So many ways, so many opportunities to be angry and hateful and deceitful, and aren't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can go on and on and on. So the light is within us, and for some reason, the light, and we don't take ourselves to be this light, The light will have to speak to us time after time after time. It will have to give us experiences to help us to see that we are the light. It will have to continue to do it. It will have to not give up on us because we are so wrapped up in ourselves and our false realities and our anger and our hatred and our judgment and all of this. We're so wrapped up in it. And our self-centered behaviors and all of the stuff, we're so wrapped up, it will have to stay with us forever to get us to come out of it. And so, why? And that answer is given. Out of mere compassion. So we'll come back to that in the morning. Okay, any questions, comments, anything?
Yes, I believe I do have a comment.
Yes, dear.
In a recent experience with my car being parked,
Yes.
and I'm asking
We're about ready to get it. We're about ready to get it now because you finally transcended that.
When can I come up here with the car?
Yes.
And I was very aware of the anxiety that was being triggered. But then I realized by stepping back, what was behind the anxiety was something very primal, because the ego or the little self has two modes: the sense of lack and the fear of death. And so what this was, the insecurity coming up, that's obviously the sense of lack. And so when I realized that, it's like the spell was broken. The being hypnotized by what I thought was happening and seeing what was really happening. And then I could let it go. So it's like seeing through the apparent or the illusion of what's happening by saying, okay, is this the sense of lack that's coming up, or is it the fear of death? Because those are primal. And everything that we think, going outward toward objects or relationships or whatever it is,
Right.
It's all generated, and most of our activity is generated by those two things.
Yes. Oh, indeed. And so, who or what helped you to see this? What actually saw it?
Well, it comes from higher.
Yeah, it has to be the light.
Yeah.
Oh, and the purpose?
For me to wake up.
For you to wake up. Oh, compassion.
And what helped for the light to penetrate the fog or the clouds and see the sky was more consistent practice, more mantra, more remembering.
Oh, yeah. We get a break from ourselves then. Yeah, it's thank you, Jagamata. So that's actually a beautiful example of what's being discussed. Not just the compassion, but also the practice. Really, sadhana is constantly seeing. Constantly seeing. What does it mean, seeing? It doesn't just mean with the eyes, does it? Constantly relating to. Constantly making ourselves aware of, one way or another, through one of the practices. Oh. Very good.
Swamiji, I found one of the most practical things that you've offered is like checking in or asking questions inside to the highest, that two-way train.
Yeah, self-talk.
Because I had to do that this morning for the tissue. I didn't know that it was rude, so I had to ask, is this rude to take one of these tissues while Swamiji's there? And the voice came, no, and then I said, I don't know if I believe that. And then he said again, no, it's fine. So then I knew. So it's a good tool, I found.
I came to ask about everything, so he's sharing that, by the way. In the same way. Because I realized I couldn't trust myself. That same voice that says, I got to get that car, I couldn't trust that. There was a realization I couldn't trust that. Anything underlying by me, idea of me, I couldn't trust. So checking in and asking about everything, yes, including tissues. And you see how it works. They're all, the small things are the big things.
The couch cushions.
And it's all, Either you're present or you're not. And if you're waiting for the big thing, you can't be present to what's here now. So,
We're practicing for the big thing.
Okay, so we should close. Page 174, we'll chant a little bit more. The closing prayers, and then we'll stand for Arati. Arati is the offering, the light. Om Chayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Chayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashitu Prabhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And then universal prayers just after. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Okay, let's rise for Arati.